But we begin with the big story and developing news from State College, where legendary women's volleyball head coach stepping down, retiring after 43 years with the Nittany Lions. His teams have qualified for 41 consecutive NCAA tournaments, only school in the nation to reach every single tournament. Rose, the winningest volleyball head coach in the history of the sport, 1,330 wins, 7 national titles, and 17 Big Ten championships. The numbers are simply astounding. Let's check in with a man who knows Russ Rose extremely well, Maryland head coach Adam Hughes, who spent nearly a decade in various roles as an assistant at Penn State. Adam, I use the term legend, and I do not use it lightly. When you start to think about Russ Rose, how can you best describe his impact on the sport of women's college volleyball?
I don't think it'll be touched. I think he's the greatest of all time. He's mentored so many coaches. He's developed the framework of what women's college volleyball is. So, I don't know anyone can make that kind of impact again.
What has made him so special, and what has made it possible for him to have this kind of success combined with that type of longevity?
Well, I would say he's a teacher. He's a coach, but he really is a mentor and a teacher. He was really important for me in my, collegiate career when I was there. He challenges you to be the best that you can be. He helps you overcome those hurdles when you have those challenges. You're not sure you can overcome them. But, he gets the most out of people, and he could have picked any sport he wanted. He could have done football. He could have done basketball. Wouldn't have made a difference. He's a great mentor and a great coach.
When you watch him from the outside, for those who only know him as the coach, you watch him TV, he seems to have this rough exterior. For those that know him a little bit better, especially his players and his assistants, what kind of man, not just coach, what kind of man is Russ Rose?
Yeah, you're going to get that tough love, but I think the thing that people don't see all the time is the love behind the scenes. He's always there to support you. He's always picking you up when you've had a tough day. He's always texts me when I have a bad loss. So, it is a lifetime. You have a best friend with Coach Rose, and, it's amazing how he can just figure out when you need him the most.
Obviously, he's had a huge impact on you, both personally and professionally. One of your daughters has a middle name of Rose, which comes from the time that you spent with Russ. Specifically and personally for you, how has he impacted your life, both on and off the court?
Well, he's really the reason I got into coaching. I was a typical college kid, wasn't sure what I'd do with my career. I asked him some advice, and, he really helped me see what my future is now. He introduced me to my wife. His whole family has had such a massive impact, and I know I'm just one of many. It's great to be part of a huge network like that. I'm sure a lot of us have some mixed emotions today, but, just so grateful for the man.
As you try to put into perspective his success and longevity, I look at you, a guy who got his first head coaching job at a Power 5 school in his early 30s. And if you were to follow the career of Russ Rose, you would still be coaching in your mid-70s. How hard is that to truly comprehend?
Don't tell my wife that. That's first off. I definitely don't want that to happen. But, what he's done over 40-some years is crazy. I'm only 37 years old. To think he's been doing it for longer than I've been alive is just mind-blowing. But, he set the bar really high. And, I think I had him down 2-0 at my place, and he came back and won in 5. So I think he's just retiring. He doesn't want to take a loss to me.
It will obviously take a few days, perhaps months and years for this to all sink in for those who follow Penn State, follow Big Ten, follow women's college volleyball from a national perspective. As people start to think about Russ Rose when he announces his retirement, what do you hope they ultimately think about him as he sails off into the sunset and enjoys some much-deserved retirement time?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is just you see the rough side like you talked about, but the love behind the scenes is something that a lot of people don't get to witness. I'm envisioning him sitting on a beach, probably smoking a cigar, enjoying a good book down in Florida, and I hope he's got a big smile today.
Adam Hughes, we truly appreciate you joining us, spending some time to share your perspective on Russ Rose, the man, the coach, the myth, the legend, retiring after 43 years at Penn State. I'm sure that you and he will be in touch if you haven't already today, and I please ask that you share our congratulations with him as well when you do so. Adam, thanks for the time.
I will do that, and thank you very much. Appreciate it.
So Russ Rose done after 43 years at the helm of Penn State women's volleyball. Turn our attention now to Big Ten basketball and the bragging rights game in the books on Wednesday night. All Illinois. Now, this is not a very good Missouri team, but take nothing away from the Illini. 25-point win. Kofi Coburn, 25 points, 14 rebounds, his 5th straight double-double, and the Illini shot the lights out from 3. As you can see, Andre Curbelo still in street clothes, not quite ready to play. As promised, Brian Butch joins us. Brian, we previewed this game during the show on Tuesday, Wednesday, earlier on in the week. And there's no question that this is not a classic Missouri team. But at the same point, Illinois has now done, not just in this game, in a couple of consecutive games, exactly what Brad Underwood asked them to do when he called them out for being a little soft. They have not been soft the last few games out.
No, they haven't been soft. They shot the ball well from 3. They've gotten the ball inside. The areas of softness was defensively. They got out-rebounded that Arizona game and thought Arizona was more physical. They haven't been. That hasn't happened now. And the 2 teams they've played aren't Arizona's caliber of team. But I look at this, and I love the aggressiveness. I love that they're getting the ball down low. And they're finding their identity. Curbelo, we don't know when he's going to come back. So the identity has to start with Kofi, and then you've got to build out and have your shooters step up. That's what they did.
And those shooters stepped up again. We discussed the possibility of letting Kofi get his, which Missouri did. And then what you try to do defensively is close out on the shooters, which Missouri clearly did not do. Or if they did, it didn't matter because Illinois knocks down shots. Jacob Grandison continues to become a more and more effective offensive player. I just start to look at this team, and without Andre Curbelo, imagine when Curbelo comes back and opens up the middle with that driving capability, their ability to make threes with Kofi down low could turn this team, in my estimation, into one of the, if not the most difficult teams to prep for defensively in the entire Big Ten.
Well, and when teams prepare for Illinois, you have to pick and choose. You can't try to take away everything. Because when you take away everything, or you try to take away everything, you take away nothing. And that's the luxury that Illinois has. Every game that they play, they're going to have to read, okay, is a team taking away the 3 or are they taking away the post? Because no team can take away both. It's just too hard. So you have to evaluate that and you have to adjust. And I think that's one of the things that the Illini and their guards have done a great job of recognizing when the shot is open and then recognizing when Kofi needs to touch the ball. I think that's been something that is undervalued as far as a guard, realizing when you need to do that. They've been really good last couple of games.
All right, so I know that you like to step out and knock down some threes, kind of played the current big man basketball that we see in the NBA. Perhaps you were the wrong vintage coming out of school. But either way, if you're down low and you're putting your body up against Kofi and you decide that you're going to play him man-on-man, single, no help down there, how are you dealing with it?
Well, the first thing you have to do is you've got to initiate the contact early. If I'm guarding him, I'm going to try to be physical with him early on at the free throw line. I'm going to body him up. That way, if he buries me, he's not burying me underneath the rim. He's burying me middle of the lane line. Okay, I've got a chance then. I've got a chance for some help. I've got a chance for whatever else. Then I'm playing a cat and mouse game. I'm using an arm bar. I'm going back and forth with him.
The arm bar.
I'm trying not. The biggest thing with this, though, Rick, is I don't want him to know where I'm at. As an offensive post player, you want to take away the space, then you can feel the body. As a defender, I want to make sure that I have space between myself and Kofi. If I have space there, he doesn't know what move to do. It buys me a couple of seconds, and he's a little unsure of what to do.
Yeah, and the arm bar, the extra physicality. In today's day and age, it's really hard. You get called for that foul. I mean,
you got to, it's so tough, Rick, and you got to be sneaky with it. Yep. You got to be it's a quick one here. You pull it off, you get space.
The new rules are certainly benefiting the offensive players down low. Illinois cruises 25-point win over Missouri. Now, it wasn't so easy for Minnesota. We discussed the possibility of a slight letdown early in this game because it's one of those mid-afternoon holiday starts against a team you should beat. And the Gophers struggled in the first half, but they really pull away in the second half to beat Green Bay 72-56. And again, it's that two-man game of Jamison Battle and Peyton Willis. They are a really dangerous combination.
Well, Jamison Battle had 15 points in the first half. Without him in the first half, this thing could have got real ugly real quick. He ends up with 23 in the game. You look at Peyton Willis, he gives you 14 and 10 assists. We talked about it yesterday. Peyton Willis has done a great, let me emphasize, a great job of understanding when he needs to score and when he needs to get others involved. And I think that's why Minnesota has had so much success so early on is the play of Peyton Willis. Yes, you look at Battle and what he's done. The guy could flat out score the basketball. Doesn't matter what level, he can score the basketball. But the leadership and the understanding of when to attack, when to play, how to play, that's what Peyton Willis has done, and that's why he's had so much success.
And what a great start for Ben Johnson and this team. I mean, you start to look at Minnesota and just the one loss to Michigan State, and they rebound and beat Michigan the next time out to get that first conference win. This is a team that I don't think anybody really wants to play right now. They're off to their best start in 5 seasons.
And the game against Michigan State that they lose, they had a great comeback, and they got off to a slow start.
Yep.
So, I mean, that's a game where I thought Minnesota outplayed Michigan State in the second half. Now, it takes 2 halves to win a game, but you got to find a way to close that out. That's a great learning experience, and they did that. The next game, they beat Michigan.
Hey, 10-1 in the year 2021. Pretty good for Ben Johnson as a starter at Minnesota. Take a quick break here on Big Ten Today. When we come back, we'll check in with the Big Ten Conference and Chief Medical Officer James Borchers as we discuss the Omicron variant, the effect it's having on. We are back on Big Ten Today as we show you a statement released from Chief Medical Officer Dr. James Borchers in the Big Ten Conference on Wednesday. Quote, the Big Ten Conference is in the process of evaluating its 2021-22 forfeiture policy for conference contests, including whether a contest should automatically be considered a forfeit. The health, safety, and well-being of our student athletes and our campus communities is our top priority. We will continue to work diligently and collaboratively with the Big Ten Conference Administrators Council, chancellors, and presidents, the Task Force for Emerging Infectious Diseases, and the Sports Medicine Committee to determine next steps, end quote. Dr. James Borchers is kind enough to join us now on Big Ten Today. Dr. Borchers, let's start with a little bit of background. Can you describe your role with the Big Ten Conference and the degree to which you communicate with the medical professionals on each Big Ten campus?
Yeah, so the role as Chief Medical Officer for the Big Ten Conference was really a role to be an advisor to the Big Ten Conference, to its constituents, the chancellors, presidents, athletic directors, senior women administrators, the folks in the conference office, but really also to be a liaison and a voice of communication from our sports medicine professionals throughout the institutions in our conference, to be able to advise and relay information back to the conference, to our institutions, but really to support them also in their endeavors. And certainly that's a role that we feel like in this time when it's critically necessary to be able to communicate and provide information has been critical to our success in being able to be flexible and respond to that. And I appreciate Commissioner Warren's confidence and the conference's confidence in me to be able to fulfill that position, and certainly the confidence from all our medical professionals across our institutions.
Dr. Borchers, as a society, we are all familiar with COVID in general, but what is different about this Omicron variant and what we are seeing with the disruptions through both professional and collegiate sports?
Well, the issue with Omicron really comes down to transmission and what we're seeing across sports. Omicron is a variant that is very transmissible, and it's certainly moving very quickly throughout various groups and populations. And so because of the speed of which the virus is being transmitted, we're seeing it affect large groups of people very quickly and causing a great number of positives in those groups. And so with that, it makes it more difficult for us to identify and contain the infection. And so as you've seen, we've had a number of disruptions throughout professional sports and in collegiate sports, basketball specifically, that have led to these disruptions. The virus itself is a variant of what we've seen with COVID-19, but because of transmission and its ability to move quickly, it has posed some additional challenges for us.
What effect do the vaccinations and the boosters to those vaccinations have on infection and transmission of this specific variant?
Well, let me start by saying vaccination and boosters are still our best option and weapon against COVID-19. Specifically with Omicron, we know that vaccination does not offer us the protection that it did against the Delta variant, which until very recently was the majority of COVID infections we were seeing in the United States. And so we are seeing breakthrough infections in vaccinated individuals, but those breakthrough infections by and large have been very mild. They have not been causing significant illness that is causing vaccinated individuals to need to seek, care at a hospital or more intensive care. But we are seeing infections from Omicron in vaccinated individuals. And even though those vaccinations are not performing as well as they were with Delta, with just the vaccination series, we do know that they've been protective to the acuity of infection. Boosters are a whole nother weapon that we have against Omicron, in that people that are completing their booster after their vaccination series have significantly increased protection against Omicron initially, and we're seeing that the booster is really important. So certainly those that have not been vaccinated should talk to their healthcare provider. We've encouraged everyone to do so, to talk about vaccination, but if they've completed the vaccination series and they're eligible, booster is certainly something they need to consider to protect themselves against Omicron. And I'm happy to tell you that most of our constituents at our institutions have really led the way in their communities by doing so. We have significant percentages of individuals, well north of 90% of student athletes, coaches, administrators, and even those that are at our institutions in the Big Ten footprint that have adopted vaccination and are adopting boosters. So really doing what they can to prevent the issues that we've seen in the past with COVID and with this new variant.
What additional steps can we take to minimize the disruptions that we're seeing with collegiate and professional sports?
Well, I think, first of all, let's go back to vaccination and boosters. If you're eligible, getting vaccinated, getting a booster not only protects you, but it protects your community. It protects your opponents. It protects those in your, in your immediate group, teammates, for example, on a sports team. So that's really important. The other mitigating factors that we have talked about with COVID now are still hold true. I mean, masking, and especially masking indoors, is really important. And I think it's a great example to set as well. And I've been really excited to see, in the Big Ten, for example, student bodies that have been masked, when they're at basketball games, or what we saw at the recent volleyball championships, where individuals were really taking masking responsibly in an indoor setting. And masking is important. It does help prevent transmission. Social distancing is important. Trying to avoid, really densely crowded indoor spaces is really important. And then just being very personally responsible if you're not feeling well, and just staying home, or being tested if you don't feel well. Making certain that you're not doing something that can contribute to transmission. And I think if we can get our hands around those things and continue to institute those, although we know we're all fatigued by them, it's going to really help us when we think about this variant.
Dr. Borchers, what's different now in comparison to the way that we dealt with COVID during the last academic and athletic school year?
Well, I think we've learned a lot. I mean, I think we know a lot about what helps us to prevent some of the things that we had seen in COVID. I think that vaccinations and boosters have helped us tremendously in our athletic populations. Our athletes, by and large, have adopted vaccination. They're adopting boosters. They're doing things that really are preventing the severe illness and the severe complications that can occur from COVID-19 and this variant by doing so. We know that in those populations where people are vaccinated and certainly have a booster, that we're not seeing significant illness. And so it has helped us really to be successful through the fall when we were dealing with Delta, and can help us to be successful through the winter as we weather the wave of Omicron that will be with us here for at least the next short foreseeable future, next few weeks to potentially month. But I think also we know what works. We know that if we adopt certain strategies, and I've been so encouraged by the fact that many of our institutions and coaches and athletes have immediately gone right back to the things that maybe they were doing last year that were so important. Socially distancing in their meetings, wearing masks, not congregating for meals, avoiding those other big crowded situations where COVID can spread. By doing those things and knowing about those things, we can really do our best to avoid the complications and the disruptions we saw last year.
Whether it's voluntary or mandatory, how can testing and testing programs help with this variant in terms of us trying to not see all these sports be disrupted?
Yeah, well, testing is an important part of what we do to help us identify the variant and identify infection. And so I think that certainly we know that for individuals that are not feeling well, that are symptomatic, being able to use a rapid test at home, even on their own, to identify themselves as having COVID-19 and then isolating can really help to prevent transmission. And although we've had a lot of difficulty just throughout the country being able to get those rapid tests in people's hands, being able to identify early and isolate, we know helps to prevent spread. And so we know that we can affect transmission. We know that testing can do that. And even if you can't get tested, if you are been around someone who's been sick and you're not vaccinated, or certainly if you're not feeling well, isolating and staying, away from others can be really helpful. So that old adage of if you don't feel well, stay home really works here. And testing can be a part of that if it helps you to identify, COVID infection and stay away from others while you're infected.
From the conference's perspective, Doctor, what strategies is the Big Ten implementing to address the emergence of this variant?
Well, currently we're really taking a look at some of the policies that were put in place in August to address competition and realize that we're in a different place at this point. And so I've been, just really honored to work with the conference office to respond so quickly in looking at how we can make certain that we give student athletes the safest, best opportunity to continue to participate. We know with Omicron in a short period of time here that there's going to be some disruptions because there are going to be some breakthrough infections. And so looking at ways to minimize the impact of that on seasons, looking at ways to minimize the impact of being able to reschedule events and working with our medical staffs across institutions to identify when it's safe to do so, understanding their situations and being able to allow these seasons to move forward with as little disruption as possible is really the strategy that the conference has taken. And it's been something that I think will continue to evolve, but certainly something that we're working on every day. And certainly I know the conference is working on every day to make certain that this experience for the student athletes in the Big Ten and certainly in a healthy and safe environment can proceed with as little disruption as possible.
And lastly, Doctor, a question that I know is first and foremost on a lot of people's minds as they're starting to think about potential bowl trips and following their favorite teams to bowl games. What do you think the immediate future holds regarding Big Ten and collegiate sports with this variant out there?
Well, I think that we're going to see some disruptions. I think we have to be honest about that. I think we know that that Omicron does affect individuals differently, even vaccinated individuals. I think those individuals that are vaccinated and certainly that have boosters can still feel confident that they can go about their normal plans. Certainly should be cautious using masking and all the other strategies we talked about as they move forward. But I'm actually I'm encouraged that there's been such a quick response to what we're seeing with Omicron. It's still very new. I think we have to realize that we're still learning a lot. But I think if we can continue to employ the things that we've discussed here today, the things that many experts and public health officials are talking about, I think that we can be successful through this season. And I know that our Big Ten institutions have made an incredible commitment to do everything that they can do to be able to get in a successful bowl season, but certainly to continue to move forward with all the academic and athletic experiences for the student athletes of the conference.
Dr. James Borchers, Chief Medical Officer for the Big Ten Conference. Dr. Borchers, we truly appreciate you taking the time this morning and sharing all this information and insight with us and our viewers.
Thanks so much. Appreciate it, and happy holidays.
This is my favorite segment here on Big Ten Today as you look at the net rankings through Wednesday's game, and holy cow, basically the entire conference inside the top 45 at this point. The reason this is my favorite segment of the entire show is because we put Brian on the spot and we ask him to name his top 5 teams. And the trouble is he takes all the heat or all the credit for the fans of your number 1 team. I just get to tee him up and you get to criticize his choices. So with that as the backdrop, we start with number 5, and you go with your alma mater. You could have put them higher. I understand you don't want to go too easy on the school that you played at, but you have Wisconsin at number 5. Why do you have them there?
Well, they've got good wins. Houston, St. Mary's, Texas A&M, and Indiana. And the way they beat Indiana, the second half, the big comeback. They've got 2 losses. The Ohio State loss, which wasn't great. The Providence loss, but no Johnny Davis. But it's the holiday season, so I'm going to give them a ballpoint pen. And why am I going to give them a ballpoint pen? Because they need to find that third score. So I think that's going to be Chucky Hepburn and what he's able to bring. So they're going to get consistent play from the point guard position. I think that's going to help them throughout the year.
So you think it's Davis, Davison, and then Chucky Hepburn is the third scorer?
I do. I think what he's been able to do defensively, he's able to guard, get some steals, get out to the break. I think he's going to become more aggressive.
I would not have guessed that. All right, at number 4, you have Illinois. Now, personally, I probably would have flipped these teams. I probably would have had Illinois 5 and Wisconsin 4, not based on the future, but based on what we've seen to this point. You have the Illini at number 4. Why, and what do they need moving into 2022?
You look at 2 of the losses for the Illini. One was without Kofi, a loss to Marquette.
Yep.
And then one was Kofi's first game back, a loss to Cincinnati. The loss to Arizona. Rick, Arizona's just really good. Like, that's
really
not
good.
A bad loss.
One of the best teams in the
really
nation.
good, right? So I look at that, and I think, overall, Kofi is starting to play better. Last 2 games are playing better. My gift for the Illini, though, is a pair of glasses in the name of Curbelo, and he's going to be back. And when he comes back, what he does for this team. So that's the gift I'm going to get is Andre.
You like those cool, very fashionable specs?
Yeah, I mean, I can't pull them off.
No, you cannot.
No, I mean, absolutely not.
We're abundantly clear on that.
For sure.
Now, Michigan State is the second highest ranked team inside the Big Ten, but you have a number 3 in the Butch Power Rankings. Spartan fans not going to be happy with this, just by the way.
No, but I love this team. But they just haven't beaten anybody. And I think that's the biggest thing.
So it's degree of difficulty for you.
It's degree of difficulty. Their losses, they're not bad losses either. Kansas and Baylor. Number 7 in the country, Kansas. Number 1 in the country, Baylor.
Those would qualify as good losses, correct?
That's fine, but who have you beaten, right? And I think when you started Big Ten play, you started off with Minnesota and Penn State. So who have you played? My gift to them is a star. They need a shooting star. Max Christie, I think, is going to continue to shoot the ball better in the second half, and that's why they're going to be better.
Do they need a shooting star, though? I could argue that their depth is actually what separates them when they have all these guys who can go for 13, 15, 17 a night.
But does that shooting star move them to 2 or 1?
Could, potentially, because at number 2 is Ohio State, a star of its own in E.J. Liddell. And Chris Holtman's still waiting for some important guys to come back and be healthy as well. I think it's a really dangerous team because I think Liddell is one of the toughest matchups in the entire country.
Well, he is. There's no question about that. The win against Duke is why I have them at 2. I mean, it's just a really good win. E.J. Liddell's been fantastic in everything that he's done out there, the leadership. The gift that I'm giving the Ohio State Buckeyes, though, is a wing. Because they need Justice Sueing back.
Yeah.
What he can do at that wing spot for them is fantastic. And I think he is able to get in passing lanes, get extra and easy baskets on the defensive end. He gambles a little bit on the defensive end, but he gets rewarded. And those are just some easy buckets that at times Ohio State needs. So I'm going to give him a pair of wings for their game.
Yeah, I really liked what he did last year, watching him at the Big Ten tournament. He was one of the reasons that Ohio State had success late in the year. Wasn't just E.J. Liddell, as defenses started to collapse on Liddell. And at number 1, this is no surprise. This has been the number 1 team in the Big Ten over the course of the year. Obviously, the loss to Rutgers took them out of the number 1 spot in the country, but it's Purdue.
It is Purdue. And you look at everything that they've done and how they've done it. They're 11-1. The only losses at Rutgers are really good. Game, I think they've found ways to get better. They will continue to get better. What gift do you give to somebody that has everything? I'm going to give them a wallet. And what do I mean by that? They need to make sure they stay healthy, and they need to make sure there's not complacency in what they're trying to do. Stay focused on the end goal, because who doesn't need a wallet?
I actually asked for a wallet for Christmas, but I don't get the comparison here.
I'm trying to find, because they've got everything. So you give them the wallet, and then that way they hope there's no injuries that come with it. I don't know what you get every
No,
time.
I'm just glad.
Purdue team has
I'm glad
everything.
that you explained it. I'm glad that you explained it. I got to be honest with you. I don't think you're a great gift giver.
No.
I think you're good at a lot of things. My wife tells me the same thing. She says you're good at a lot of stuff. You're not great at giving gifts. And you want to talk about wrapping gifts? Forget it.
Oh, yeah, no, that's done.
Thank goodness for stockings, because I can just stuff everything in there unwrapped, and then you're all good to go.
Absolutely.
All right, top 5, according to Brian Butch.